This is going to be part 2 of the floral set. In this video, we're going to be working on the shorts portion. So go ahead and get all your materials ready and we'll jump right on in. Okay, so for the measurements that you're going to need for the shorts, you're going to want to write these down. You're going to need 4 different measurements. You're going to need your waistband measurement, whether you want your shorts to sit at your waist or your hips. Get that measurement. You're also going to want your body measurement, so that's going to be right before you hit your crotch. So from where your waistband is going to sit to right where your crotch starts, you're going to want to get that measurement so you know how long to make the body. You're also going to want to get your crotch measurement, so just from like the front to the back, whether you want it to be really short or not, just a simple measurement for the crotch. And then for the legs, you want from your crotch to where you want the leg of your pants to stop. This isn't a measurement you actually need, but it does help down the road so you don't have to continuously try your shorts on and off. So once you have those measurements, we will jump right on into the beginning of the shorts. Okay, so now we are moving on to the shorts. The first thing we'll have to do for the shorts is make the waistband. The waistband is going to be made with slip stitch ribbing, so it is going to take quite a bit longer than a normal ribbing, like half double crochet ribbing will, but I promise you it will be worth it in the end. It looks so good and it kind of just gives you this like snatched waist vibe, so hopefully you guys love it as much as I do. To start, you are going to start with a slip knot. For me, I wanted my waistband to be about 2 inches in length, so I did a total of 15 stitches. So you decide how long you want your waistband to be and chain that many, and then do a turning chain of 1, and I will meet you for the next steps. 16 chains, and I did my extra turning chain. So now you're gonna turn your work and you're gonna skip your last chain and go into the second to last, and you're just going to pull up a loop and pull it through, and you're going to repeat that all the way down, just slip stitching into every single chain stitch all the way down until you reach the end of the row. And when you're doing this, try to keep them not like super loose. You don't want your stitches to be too loose, but you definitely want to make sure that they're loose enough that you can get into the stitches for the row afterwards. So just keep your tension like in between loose and tight. Alright, I finished off the first row. To chain 1, turn your work again, and if you look at the first row, you have these 2 V's. You have the like little V-shaped stitch, so you're gonna want to go into the back, the loop of the V facing away from you, like the furthest one, like so, and do the same thing, pull up a loop. And then you're just gonna repeat that, making sure you're only going into that back V. See that back V right there? And you're only gonna go into that V. And just slip stitch. And repeat that all the way down. Like I said, this is very tedious, but once you see it slowly start to work up, it's gonna look much better. I can actually show you what it will look like when it's finished, so give me just a second. Okay, so I finished up. I just wanted to show you this very last stitch. You might not see it at first, but if you look very closely, there's one V, one part of the V and the other part right there, like so. And I'm gonna make sure I go into this back stitch right here. chain 1, turn your work, and repeat. Again, going into the back loops only with a slip stitch. And you're just going to continue doing this until you get the length that you wanted your waistband to be. So make sure you are making sure you measured up against a tape measure to get an accurate measurement. And I will show you guys how to do that once we get a little bit further along. But I will check back in with you guys to show you how to connect and properly measure to make sure your waistband is the right length for you, and connect it up, and then we will continue. Okay, so I've gotten down to my last row, and I ended up doing 192 rows. As you can see, it's very stretchy. It looks kind of like ribbing, like knit ribbing, so I really like the look of this one. And I did use a little yarn stitch marker to mark my 100th row while I was counting, of course. But I'm going to show you guys how to measure this properly, the best I can on camera, and then I'm going to show you guys how to attach it to move on to the body part of the shorts. So let's do that. Here is just one side, and I have my tape measure right here. So I'm just gonna kind of hold it up against it, and then I'm gonna kind of tighten my tape measure out, lay it out a little bit, and I'm gonna hold the other end, and I'm just gonna pull about that much. Decent little tug until kind of most of the stitches separate, and that's how you're gonna measure it. And you'll kind of just hold this tape measure up against it. You might have someone else hold it or stretch it for you while you hold the tape measure, but you can also just stretch it out around your waist to get accurate measurement. It really just depends on you. You're making it for yourself, so of course you want it to fit you, so just measure it up against yourself or use a measuring tape. Totally is up to, it's like person by person, you know. So I am going to show you guys how to attach this for a pretty clean look, and then we will move on to the next part. So I am going to take the end that doesn't have the working yarn, and I'm gonna have it closest to me, and I'm gonna fold it in like so. And then we're going to go into our working yarn loop that we left off, and we're gonna kind of do, it's gonna be a little weird, so we're gonna go over this and slip stitch into that stitch right there. And then we're gonna turn it towards us. Or actually no, we're gonna keep it away from us. And we're just going to, if you look closely, the stitches at the beginning, there's like these little holes from the chain. You're gonna go into that hole at the top, and then get in there. Once you're at the hole at the top, you're gonna go onto the other side, and on the other side has these V's at the top. So you're gonna go find the very first V right here, if you can see that, and you're gonna go into the back loop like we were doing previously. So it's gonna be a little wonky to work with, but I promise the outcome looks amazing. And gonna go into that back loop. And pull it through all of those loops, just like so. And it's gonna kind of create this, basically it's gonna create like another one of these rows without actually having to make another one of the rows. And you're just gonna repeat that. It's gonna be kind of weird because you're doing it a little backwards, but just trust the process, okay? This is like all about trusting the process when it comes to this set. So again, going into that back loop, kind of having to maneuver a little bit and wrap around, pull it under, pull it through, and slip stitch, just like so. And I will meet you guys at the end, and we will start on the body. Okay, so now that I have finished up the waistband and attaching it, this is where I attach the waistband. You can see there's a little bump, but it's very minimal. And then if you flip it over, this side looks nice and clean, just like the rest. So now that we're done, we're gonna leave our working yarn and we're going to flip it around so it's like inside out. I'm gonna move my yarn through so everything is cohesive and easy to work with. Now we have it working right side up where there isn't any bump, and we can get started on the body of the shorts. Okay, so we have our inside of our shorts facing us, chain 1, and for this row we're going to work in every one of these V stitches instead of the bar stitches in between. So you're going to put 2, so the first one's here right where we are, we're going to put 2 single crochets in each of those V stitches. So that's the first one where we are already at. These are the first 2, and then this next V stitch right here, I'm just going to go into the top of it with 2 single crochets. And this is how we're going to start the increasing for the shorts, so they will fit around your hips and everything. So for every V stitch, you're just going to put 2 single crochets right there, all the way around. And when you get to the end, you're just going to slip stitch into that first single crochet, and I will meet you guys at the end. Okay, so now I'm down to my last V stitch. I'm gonna finish it off with you guys. Put 2 single crochets into that one V stitch, making sure to ignore the bar right there, and first stitch of the row I'm gonna slip stitch into. You're gonna chain 2, and you're gonna keep going in the same pattern around. We're not gonna flip our work for this pattern, but you are going to go into that same stitch you just slip stitched into with a half double crochet. Now this is the only time we use a half double crochet in the body of the shorts. The rest of it's going to be single crochets, but just for this row it's going to be half double crochets. I feel it just gave it a little bit more texture and like a better look and fit by doing this after that increase row. So in every stitch I'm just placing 1 half double crochet in every stitch from our previous increase row, and this is going to help build that length and width that you need for your hips. And I will check back in with you guys after I have finished this row. Alright, so I'm down to my last 2 stitches. I'm gonna half double crochet into both of them. And the last one. Make sure you're not forgetting your last stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch of the row, and then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet into that very first stitch that we just slip stitched into, and then I'm going to single crochet into every stitch after that. 1 single crochet in each stitch, and you're going to do this for row 3 and row 4. So after row 4, I will meet you guys back and show you how to start row 5. So So I'm down to my last 2 stitches on row 4. Again, we're just gonna finish off with the single crochets. And then I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch of the row. And that is the end of row 4. And now we're gonna start row 5. So for row 5, this is where the stitch markers might come in handy. Now, I personally didn't use any stitch markers, I just laid it out as I worked and then went into each side of the hip. And basically for this row, you're gonna place 3 increases throughout the row. I did 1 increase on each hip, and then at the very end of the row, I do an increase in the very last stitch. So I'll show you guys how I do that. So I'm pretty much just going to chain 1 and single crochet into every single stitch until I get to my hip placement right over here. So I'm going to increase in this section right here and one of these stitches off to this side of the hip. I'm also going to place an increase into one of these stitches off to this side of the hip, and then I'm going to place my last increase in the very last stitch of the row. And I will meet you guys at the end for row 6. Just make sure you pick 3 places to put your increases and do single crochets in every stitch besides those spots for the increases. Okay, so I'm about to finish off row 5. I just want to show you guys what I meant by the 3rd increase going in the back. So I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to single crochet into the next stitch, and then that last stitch I'm just going to place 2 single crochets instead of 1 to make that increase. And I also increased right here in the hip and over here and the hip as well. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly accurate as to where you place those increases, just roughly in the vicinity of where you would need the increases. So for me, I needed it more in the hips and in the back, but it's just personally where you need it the most. So place 3 increases for that row. And then we are going to slip stitch into that first stitch, chain 1, and get started on row 6. So for row 6 and 8, so 6 to 8 row is going to be the same thing. You're just going to single crochet into every stitch around, placing 1 single crochet into each stitch like we were doing previously. Basically just repeating rows 3 and 4 here, which were just the single crochet rows, but you're going to do this for row 6 through 8. And then once you have finished row 8, I will meet you back to show you how to start up row 9. So just make sure you're placing 1 single crochet in every stitch around. Don't miss any stitches, and just be very cautious that you're not placing any increases. So I'm finishing up row 8 now with my last 2 single crochets, and I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch again, and I'm going to take a little look at what we got going so far. So as you can see, the waistband cinges in at the waist area, and it begins to flare out a lot. Now this is the look we're going for. We want this kind of ruffled flare look for now, at least. So now that we have finished row 8, we're gonna move on to row 9. Now this is where it kind of becomes repetitive for a minute, but we're gonna do row 9, and row 9 is going to be like row 5, where we did the 3 increases in the areas we needed it the most. So I did my 3 increases, one at the hip here, one at the hip here, and then one in that very last stitch of the row. I'm going to repeat that same pattern of doing single crochets all the way around and only placing 3 increases in the spots I need it, so my hips and right at the back. And then I will meet you guys back at the end for row 10. Again, just putting your increases wherever you need it, only 3 increases, place them, and the rest of the stitches will be just 1 single crochet in each stitch. Okay, so I'm about to finish off row 9 with my 3rd increase, but I again want to show you that I'm putting my 3rd increase in the last stitch. I have 2 stitches left. Going to make sure I'm single crocheting into that second one and putting 2 single crochet increases into the last one. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch to join and chain 1. So now we're going to move on to row 10. Row 10 is going to be just like the other rows. We're going to single crochet in every stitch all the way around till the end of the row, and then we will start row 11. Okay, so I've officially finished row 10, and now we're going to start on row 11. So we're going to chain 1 and single crochet into that stitch that we just slip stitched into. And for row 11, we're going to be, for row 11 and 14, we're basically going to be repeating row 9 and 10 all the way until row 14. So for row 11, you're going to do 3 increases in the same areas as you have previously. And then row 12 is going to be only single crochets in every stitch. Row 13 is going to be 3 increases in the same spots as before, and then row 14 will be only single crochets. So you're going to repeat, like I was saying, rows 9 and 10 until you get to row 14, and then I will meet you guys there and we will continue from row 14. Okay, so I just finished row 14 and slip stitch into the first stitch of the row to end off our row. Now we're going to be moving on to row 15, but row 15 through 20 is going to be single crocheting in each stitch around, just like we did for row 14. So you're going to do from row 15 to 20 just normal single crochets in every stitch around, and after you complete row 20, I will check in with you guys so we can work on the next rows. We're almost about halfway there. Just keep measuring it. You can try it on. About now would probably be the perfect time to try it on, just to make sure the width is perfect for yourself, and also to make sure that it fits well. And then you can also check to make sure how much longer you want to make it. For me, I did a total of 25 rows before starting the leg portions and separating everything. But for you, you can decide on if you want longer or shorter rows, or if you need to do less increases, you can. Just try it on, and it's more of a made to measure pattern, so just try it on and make sure it fits you well and suits you well. Okay, so I just finished row 20, and this is how it is looking so far. We're very, very close to splitting the legs and getting started on the leg portions, and then we'll be done. But now we're gonna move on to row 21. Row 21 is just going to be like our previous rows of increases. We're going to put 3 increases in the same spots as the previous rows that we've been doing with increases. So for me, I'm going to do 2 increases in these corner hips and then 1 increase in the last stitch. And then I will check in with you guys after row 21. Okay, so I just finished row 21. I did my increase here, and then I did a little bit over to the side here. Now I'm completely done with the increases for these shorts, and now we're going to just continue on adding the length that you need before we start separating the legs. So for me, I'm gonna do until 25 total rows, and once I hit row 25, after I'm done with that, I will start dividing the legs. For you, you can decide if 25 rows is the right length, if you need to add any lengths, or if you would like it to be shorter before you start dividing up the legs. So I'm going to single crochet in every stitch around until I get to row 25. I will check in with you guys to show you how to divide the legs and get the proper stitch count and measurement for the leg portion. But I will check in after I finish up the next couple of rows. Okay, so I just completed row 25, and I have finished the length I want it to be before I start dividing the legs and start up the crotch area. So before we get started, we're gonna have to do a lot of math, measurements, and counting, which is the boring part, but we need to know these measurements in order to get everything very accurate for it to fit right. So the first thing we're going to need to know in order to even start with the legs is we're going to need to know how many chains we need in the middle right here in order for it to fit from front to back comfortably. So I asked you to get a measurement, whether from pants or just from off your body, of kind of like a crotch measurement. For me, mine was 6.5, and I ended up actually rounding that down to 6 inches, and I did a total of 22 chains. So how you can do this to make sure it's accurate is, for me, I just chained and then I tried it on. If the chain didn't reach to the back, from the back to the front, I took it off and chained a couple more, put it back on and tried it again. I'm going to show you how you can do this instead of doing that method. If you want to do that method, you totally can, but I'm going to show you another method. So for me, I have my measuring tape. Okay, I'm going to make sure I keep that with me. I'm going to chain 22 just to show you. So there's my chain of 22. I'm going to stretch it as much as possible. And I actually wanted these to be a little bit shorter, so I ended up going with a 5-inch crotch. You can totally add more, but as you can see, it measures out perfectly, and that's just an easier way to get the most accurate measurement. Is you can just simply chain as much as you feel like you need and then measure it out with measuring tape and keep adding or taking away until you feel like it's perfect. Now, once you know your crotch chain, you're going to need to write this down and keep it so that way you can use it for some math here in a second. So now that we have that part done, the next boring part that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to count every single one of these stitches around from the last row you did. You want to know exactly how many stitches you have in the round in total. So double check this, triple check it, count it as many times as you feel like you need until you're confident that that is the number. And then you're going to write that number down as well. So keep both numbers. For me, I had a total of 211 stitches. So I'm going to put this up on the screen so you guys can follow along with my math. So I had a total of 211 stitches, and I have a chain of 22 for my crotch. Okay, that's what we have so far. Now, in order to make the legs, we need to be aware of the floral pattern at the end of each leg. Now, this floral pattern is made in multiples of 22, and we need that so that way it can be cohesive all the way around each leg. So you're going to need to do a lot of math. first thing is you're going to want to take your total number of stitches and divide that by 2 for each leg. For me, I did 211 divided by 2. I got 105.5. I rounded that up to 6 because realistically speaking, you're going to go directly into one of the stitches in the middle, in the direct middle, and you're going to go into that stitch for each leg to keep them connected. So that one stitch is going to count for both legs. So I just rounded it up, did 106 for both legs. That's how many stitches will be there around. Now you're going to take that number, mine is 106, and you're going to go ahead and add 22 to that, or whatever your crotch number is. So 106 plus 22 gave me 128. So that's how many stitches are going to be in each leg around, right? That's your number of stitches in each leg once you start the legs up. Now you're going to need to get that number to a multiple of 22. So how I did this was I took my total number for each leg and I divided that by 22. That would be 128 divided by 22 for me. I got 5.8, and instead of rounding up so I wouldn't have to increase more, I actually rounded down to 5, and that way I'd have to do a couple decreases. So round your number down, whatever number you get, whether that's a decimal or a whole number, round it down or keep it as the whole number. And you're going to keep that number as well because that's going to be important. So now you're going to take your rounded down or your whole number, whatever you got, and you're going to take that times 22. So for me, that was 22 times 5. And I got 110, which means that I need to make sure there are 110 stitches in each of these legs by the end of the last row. Now, in order to do this, we need to do more math. So for me to get 110 stitches, I had to figure out how many stitches I needed to get rid of by the end of the row. So I took 128 and I minused it by 110. That means I need to get 18 stitches taken away from each of these rows. So now that you know how many stitches you need to get rid of for each of the leg holes, you need to figure out how you're going to divide that up between 6 rows. So moving forward, for me at least, there's only going to be 6 rows of decreases, and I suggest the same just to keep it cohesive, but you can make your length on on single crochet rows as long as you need, just to make it fit you and be comfortable for you. So take your number of stitches you need to get rid of, and you're going to divide that by 6. So mine is 18 divided by 6. I then ended up getting 3, which means I need to put 3 decreases in every one of those 6 decrease rows moving forward. Hopefully this makes some sense. You really want to pay attention to this math. If you have any questions, you can definitely comment down below, and I will try to help you through the math if you need. I know it might not make the most sense. I tried to make it make sense, so hopefully me explaining it and putting the math on the screen helps you a little bit. But that is pretty much it. So all in all, I need to do 3 decreases in 6 rows, which will give me a total of 110 stitches in each leg hole, which will give me the right amount of stitches for when we start the floral row at the very end. So now that we know that, and we know how many stitches we need for the crotch, and I have already chained my 22 stitches for the crotch, I am going to take my chain of 22, and I have already found my middle point, which was 106 stitches around on each side, and I'm going to go directly into that middle stitch, and I'm just going to make sure my chain is all, the V's are facing on top, and I'm just going to slip stitch directly into that stitch, just like so. And I'm going to turn my work so that way I'm facing the side we just slip stitched into. And I'm going to chain 1 because this is going to be the start of our 26th row. So into that stitch you just slip stitched into, where I still have my little stitch marker, you're going to single crochet into that stitch. And now that we know we need a certain amount of decreases, we know that we're gonna have to put those decreases in the decrease rows. But this very first row, the 26th row, is just going to be single crocheting all the way around back into this stitch. I will meet you guys back once we get closer to this chain right here, just to show you how to do this and end off the row, and then we will get started on row 27. Okay, so I just finished my last stitch before joining this chain row. So how we're gonna do this is, if you look closely, there is V's. Side of the V, and then there's the other side. So we're gonna go into this side closest to the leg, just through one side of the V, as you can see, and we're gonna we're gonna chain into that. So we're gonna single crochet into that part of the chain right here, and single crochet, and then do it again. And we're gonna go into every single chain around, and if you need to, just double count, like double check while you're counting as you get to this part, just to make sure you're going into every single chain. Make sure you have the correct number to the chain that you started with, and then you should be good. And you're just gonna go into one side of that chain all the way down until you get to the first stitch, and then you will slip stitch. And then we will start on the next row, which will be a decrease row. Okay, so I'm about to go into the last stitch of the chain. I just wanted to show you. So this little V right here, I'm gonna make sure I go into that one right there, just like that, and single crochet into it. And then that very first stitch right here is where I'm gonna slip stitch, just like that. And so now we're gonna start on row 27, which is gonna be a decrease row, and I'm gonna decrease here on the hip and then in the back, kind of, and just 3 random spots, and then I'm just gonna single crochet in every stitch around. Okay, so I just finished up row 27 and I'm slip stitching into that first stitch. I'm gonna chain 1, and we're about to start row 28, which is another one of our 6 rows of decreases. So this is gonna be our second decrease row. Again, you're gonna do, for me it was 3 decreases, for you it may be different, but whatever that number was of decreases per row you needed to do, that is what you're gonna do this row. You're gonna do that many decreases in the row. For me, I'm gonna do 3. I'm gonna keep them in the same spot. They don't have to be in this exact same stitch, but in the same area. So I'm gonna do 1 here, 1 over here, and 1 in the back. I'm gonna try to avoid doing any decreases in this crotch area because we want this to be the same number of stitches as it was before, just so it fits comfortably and it doesn't start to get like weird and anything with the decreases. So I'm going to do another decrease row. Again, I'm gonna place 3 decreases. Whatever your math said for your decreases, you're just gonna do that many. And I will meet you guys at the end of row 28 to start row 29. Okay, so I just finished row 28. I'm gonna slip stitch into that first single crochet stitch and chain 1, and I'm just going to repeat rows 27 and 28 for rows 29, and 30. So again, like before, rows 29 and 30 are going to be decrease rows, so do your consistent number of decreases for these next 2 rows. Okay, so I just finished row 30. I am slip stitching into that first stitch, and I'm going to chain 1. Now, row 31 is going to be different than the last couple of rows that we've done so far. Row 31 is going to be an all single crochet row, so we're going to single crochet in every stitch around, placing only 1 single crochet in each stitch, just like we did at the very beginning of the legs portion. And when you complete row 31, I'll meet you back and get you started on row 32. Okay, so I just finished row 31. I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch of the row and chain 1. Now, row 32 is gonna be just like those other rows. You're going to have to do your decreases in row 32. So like I was saying before, mine are gonna be 3 decreases for this row. You just do the number of decreases you need to do for your decrease rows, and I will meet you back at the end and we will get started on row 33. Okay, so I've officially finished row 32. I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch of the row, chain 1, and now we're gonna start on row 33. Row 33 is going to be a repetition of row 31. So this is gonna be a single crochet row only with no decreases. Row 33 and 34 are going to be repeating row 31 and 32. So once you have completed row 33 and 34 with your single crochet row and then your decrease row, I will join you back on row 35, which will be my last row, and then we will start on the flower pattern. So just remember, complete row 33 and 34 just like you did with row 31 and 32. If you need to skip back just to re-watch those 2 rows, you definitely can. Okay, so I'm finishing up row 34 right now. I'm gonna slip stitch again like we've been doing, chain 1. So row 35 is going to be the last row for me before I start the floral pattern of the shorts. Now, you personally, you can make it as long as you would like after this point. Once you've done all those increases you need to do, you can pretty much just single crochet in every stitch for as many rows as you need to make it the length you want. Now, if you want it the same length as me, I suggest 35, maybe even 36 rows. And then from there, once you have your length, you're just gonna go straight into the floral pattern. But just make sure you have your decreases out of the way before you stop or start any length, because you want to make sure you have the right amount of stitches for each leg hole before you start that floral pattern. So as long as you have the correct amount of stitches, you can stop at any point or continue with just a bunch of single crochet rows. So for me, I'm gonna finish off my last row of single crochets, and that's gonna be row 35. And once I'm done with row 35, I am pretty much just going to repeat everything we did over here from rows 26 to 35 on the other side. And once you have completed that, I will check in with you guys afterwards to show you how to do the floral pattern. So just get your rows out of the way for your first leg, make it as long as you want it, and then repeat the same thing over on your second leg, making sure to go into the other side of those chains for your very first row over here. Once you're done with that, we'll get started on the floral pattern and I'll check back in with you guys. Okay, so I have officially finished the base of the shorts, And now we're gonna start on the floral pattern for the shorts, and then we'll be done from there. So you're gonna need your secondary color, and you're going to start from the last row that you finished on your shorts. I'm gonna take my yarn. I'm not gonna make a slip knot or anything. I choose not to use a slip knot whenever I join with different colors after a row. I like to just work my yarn into my work as I go. So I'm going to go into that first stitch where we slip stitch. Make sure it's the slip stitch and not like the actual slip stitch itself, but the stitch you go into when you slip stitch. And I'm going to just pull a loop through, make sure my yarn is nice and tight, and I'm going to grab the tail end of my primary color as well, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet into that same exact stitch and pull everything nice and tight. And then we are going to single crochet into the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you should have a total of 5 single crochets right here. Now I'm going to leave that tail yarn just hanging there in the back, and I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip 3 stitches and go into that 4th stitch and with a double crochet. And then next stitch with a double crochet. And the next stitch with a double crochet. So you should have 5 single crochets, a chain of 4, skipping those 3 stitches, and then 3 double crochets. If you notice, this is very similar to the beginning of the pattern for the top. It's the same exact pattern, but instead of 18 plus rows, this is only going to be 3 rows. So I'm gonna chain 4 again. I'm gonna skip 3 stitches and go into the 4th stitch with a single crochet. And then I'm gonna single crochet into the next 4 stitches as well to give me a total of 5 single crochets. Just like so. And then I'm gonna chain 4. Skip 3 stitches going into the 4th with a double crochet, and then putting a double crochet into the next 2 stitches for a total of 3 double crochets. Again, one more time. Chain 4. Skip 3 stitches going into the 4th with a single crochet, and then single crochet into the next 4 stitches. Chain 4. Skip 3 stitches going into the 4th with a double crochet, and then 2 more double crochets after that. And you're just going to repeat this pattern all the way around till you get to the end, and I'll show you how to finish off this row and start the second row of the floral stitch. Okay, so I'm about to finish off this row, and I have a total of 8 stitches left. I did my last single crochet of 5, and now I'm going to skip 3 stitches and do my 3 double crochets. Okay, now as you can see, I have 2 stitches left, but I also have that slip stitch. So I'm just going to chain 4, 3, 4, and then I'm just going to slip stitch right into that first single crochet of the row, just like that. So it basically is a complete row around, And I suggest that you do the same thing. You just try to make sure that your row ends on a double crochet of 3 and the chain, and then just slip stitch into the beginning. It doesn't have to be the exact number of 3 or 2, 1, whatever. Just try to make it work. And as you can see, it's a little gappy, but it will definitely work for what we're trying to do. Okay, so now I'm going to slip stitch into the second single crochet. Okay, I'm gonna chain 1 and I'm going to go into that same stitch with a single crochet. Then I'm going to go into the next 2 stitches with single crochets. So what I did here was I tried to skip the first stitch and the last stitch, so we have our total of 3. And now I am going to chain 4. Then I am going to go into that third chain of our chain 4 with a double crochet. And we're pretty much just repeating that same pattern that I showed you guys before, but with less rows and less length. So now I'm going into that 4th chain with 2 double crochets, the chain right after the 3rd one, just like so. Now we're going to skip all the way over to this first chain right here next to the 3 double crochets and put 2 double crochets. Just like so. And then we're going to go into that second chain with 1 double crochet. Now chain 4. Now you're gonna skip this first single crochet right here and go into the second one with a single crochet. And then you're gonna go into the next 2 with a single crochet as well. Skipping that last one, you're gonna chain 4. And then you are going to go into that third chain with 1 double crochet. Go into that next chain with 2 double crochets. And then you're going to go into this first chain on the other side with 2 double crochets as well, repeating that same pattern. And then go into the next one with 1. And I'm going to show you guys one more time before I jump off and meet you at the end. But we're gonna chain 4, skip the first single crochet and go into the second with a single crochet, and then go into the next 2 with single crochets for a total of 3. Skip that last stitch, chain 4, go into the third chain with a double crochet, then go into the next chain with 2 double crochets. Now skip over to that first chain on the other side and put 2 double crochets in there as well. And place 1 double crochet into the next chain next to you. And keep repeating. Chain. Okay, so I'm down to the last chain portion of my second row. I'm going to go into the first chain on the other side of the 3 double crochets with 2 double crochets into that chain. 2, and then I'm going to go into this next chain right next to it with 1 double crochet, just like we've been doing. Chain 3 this time instead of 4, and I want you to slip stitch into the first single crochet of the 3 single crochets. Now to start row 3, we need to be in this middle stitch right next to us, so we're going to slip stitch into that stitch right there, right into the middle one, and then I'm going to chain up 6. Okay, now we are going to double crochet into that 3rd chain right here, and then into that next chain right next to it, we're going to put 2 double crochets. One double crochet and 2. Now I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to treble crochet into this gap right here. So yarn over twice. And then I'm going to chain 3 again. And then I'm going to go into this first chain on the other side of these 3 double crochets with 2 double crochets, just like we've been doing. Repeating that similar pattern. And then in that next chain, you're going to do 1 double crochet. And chain 3 again, and you're going to do another treble crochet right into the second single crochet, so you're just going to skip that first one and go into the second with a treble crochet, and then chain 3 again, repeating what we just did before, going into that 3rd chain with 1 double crochet, and then the next chain with 2 double crochet, and then you're going to chain 3, place a treble crochet into that gap again, chain 3 again, and then place 2 double crochets in that first chain space. Then in that next chain, you're going to place 1 double crochet, chain 3, treble crochet into the second single crochet space, chain 3 again, and then just keep repeating this pattern all the way around until you get to the end of the row, and I will show you how to finish off, and then that's the last row for the floral pattern on the shorts. And as you can see, you have these little half flowers like I was mentioning before with the top, and this is all you have to do for the floral pattern. That's why I said make the body of these shorts as long as you want it, but leave a little bit of space because this is only going to be a couple rows long, but it's gonna add a couple, like an inch or two. So that's why I said you could single crochet as many rows as you needed for the body until it was the length you wanted it. So I will check in with you guys at the end of the row to finish off, and then we'll be done. Okay, so I'm down to my last couple of stitches, and I'm in the first chain of our chain 3 from the end of the last row. I am going to put 3 double crochets into this chain this time. So instead of doing the 2, 1 for both chains, we're gonna do 3 in one chain, just like this. And then I'm going to chain up 3, and I am going to count from the bottom of my 6 chains. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go into that 3rd chain. Just like that. Slip stitch, pull up another loop, cut it off, and secure it. So now I'm finished with the first leg of the floral. So you're pretty much just going to repeat that same pattern over here. I'll check in with you guys when I'm completely done, and we'll finish off the video. So thank you guys so much, and I really hope you guys enjoy the outcome of your own set. I absolutely love mine. I've made 2 so far in the process of making it, and I plan to make many more in different colors. So go ahead and repeat this pattern on the other leg, and you should be done from there. Hello. So this is the end of the floral lounge set tutorial for the shorts part of the set. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out the top portion of the set. It will be linked down below so you can have a matching set to lounge around in. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions about measurements or stitch count or anything along those lines, please go ahead and comment down below, and I will answer all of your questions and help you through the process. As I said in my last video, this isn't exactly the most beginner friendly pattern. It's definitely one of those patterns you will have to have some kind of knowledge of crochet and what you're doing and like measuring and everything before you can just jump right into it. But I definitely think it is a pattern that everyone should try. I really love it, and it took me a minute to get this down and perfect for you guys, but I'm really happy with it, and I hope you guys are too. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.